wanna sip your liquor, baby. Tonight I'm back to blues, yeah. So sweet with a hint of Courtney. I get drunk on you, babe. Inch by inch, row by row, step by step we grow. Wanna feel your body, baby, longing for your sonic moan. Turn you on, turn you out, my lady. I can be your woman. Inch by inch, row by row, step by step we go. Got you looking at me like that. You can't see, okay. Inch by inch, row by row, step by step we grow. Wanna be your lover, baby. Love you like I can. Love you like no other lady. Yes, I can be your woman. Thank you.
Morning. So when I started thinking about game, it brought me in loads of different directions, thankfully, and I brought it back to kind of two different directions. One is my work life and one is my HunReal life. And I kind of see them separately, even though they both come together. So I came up with some quotes. And never in my life did I think I'd be opening up a talk with a Catholic deity on the thing, but she nailed it. She sums it up in a few words, in a quote, with life is a game, play it. And that's always kind of been something I have always believed in. And I suppose from HunReal, I really felt that not only are you playing a game, but your life is being used as a game. And in politics and in branding and marketing and everything, people are using you to sell things. They're using you for your information on social media. They're using you in politics to win games in the Dáil, etc. And I was like, okay, if you want to be part of that game, you have to start controlling your own game. So that's kind of what I started to do. And then when I was thinking about quotes, I was like, how could I do a talk today and not have a quote from Kanye? Oh my God, Kanye, what is going on? But as well, I think he was very good in the fact that he was like, you have the opportunity to play this game of life. You need to appreciate every single moment. And a lot of people don't appreciate the moment until it's past. So actually a wise word from Kanye, thank God. But yeah, so that was kind of Kanye and Mother Teresa, my two icons. And then when I was planning today, I was like, okay, I'm going to get whistles, so it feels like a game. I'm going to get glitter cannons, more on that later. And then I was like, okay, you need to calm down. So I just broke it into the quarters of a game. I'm not down with sports lingo, but I was Googling basketball, and that is definitely a lingo. So for the first quarter of my life, the sesh. The most important part in building the fundamental blocks of what was to come later, I think. And I forgot that I have to leave that up now behind me while I talk. I keep looking at it here. Anyway, I don't smoke anymore, just to be clear. when I was in school at 15, I remember having a conversation with a teacher, and they were like, because I had been very studious and very, I'm not going to go into nerd territory, but I was very efficient with my studies, and I did very well in my junior cert. And then when I hit 15, I discovered clubbing. Don't tell mom. And I started going clubbing, and then kind of things changed for me in my perspective. Clubbing can be the answer. And it was coming up to my leaving cert, and my teacher took me aside and she's like, Andrea, you have all this intelligence, very intelligent, you have all this intelligence, but you're not applying it. And if you applied it, you could be an A student. And I was like, I kind of started thinking about that, and I was like, yeah, but you know what? I'm happy to be a C average student and do well, and actually have the balance of enjoying my time, having family time, going clubbing. And it really kind of, for me, I think that was a pivotal moment of me deciding what my life was going to be like. I was never going to, I don't want to say I was never going to commit to anything, because I definitely commit to it, but I think it helped me to start figuring out what success was going to look like for me in my life. And as that happened, then I finished school, did okay, and I wanted to be a psychologist, and pre-discovering clubbing. And I was like, psychologist. And then after that, I couldn't get into the course. Thank the Lord. And like people always say, you find your life path takes you where you need to go. And that's a very good Pinterest quote, but I actually kind of believe it. Because I went off in the clubbing direction, it brought me back to a pure kind of centric focus. And it made me kind of realize that was where my strengths were. And when I went back to college later on in life, I did psychology, and I was doing it, and I was like, they want you to, I was like, this is what I think. And they're like, I don't care what you think. And I was like, this is not a Cosmo quiz, honey. This, like, I was thinking that we were going to figure out personality types. So I was literally like, no, I am so glad that the way my mind worked with the sesh worked. And actually, to continue on with the sesh, I just love talking about the sesh. When I was then in college, I was working in retail. I started working in retail when I was 16, and I think every single person should have to work in retail, because when I'm hiring staff, you can always tell the people who've had a retail background. When I was hiring staff when I worked in PR, I was like, oh my God, thank God you worked in retail. Everyone should work in retail, or everyone should work in a bar or a restaurant before doing anything else. But during that time, I went on the sesh, and I went heavy on the sesh. And at the time, if you look back on it, you could have been like, oh, that's interesting. She's kind of going in a weird direction. But actually, what the sesh taught me, I can't believe I just said that. We're going with it. What the sesh taught me was the connections I made with people. So along that journey, I made connections with so many people who now kind of prop up me and everything I do. So like, I seshed with Mazer, and we make murals now. I love that I say we make murals. He makes murals. But the connections that I made and the experience I got went through to bring me to everything I did after that. And people often kind of look down on the sesh, and I am saying no, because it was a key learning curve and connection maker for me. Thank God we get to change that picture. The second quarter of my life then, was when I started working in PR. So that's literally what I look like. I worked in a PR company for 3 years, and I learned all the kind of basic PR. They were a global company and all that jazz. Then I thought I was getting too serious. This is how much the sesh affects me. I thought I was getting too serious, and I wanted to like live my life. So I was like, I'm leaving PR. I want to not travel, go on the sesh. I have to stop saying that word, but I got a job that I didn't really have to think about. I could commit to and do whatever, but I could still go out. And I did that for a year, and it was an amazing year. But then I needed to get back into PR. And I tried to get back in a few times, and it was difficult. And I started working in Spain in sales. And I sold one ad in 6 months. And my boss was like, honey, do you think we can keep you on? I was like, I definitely would have fired me ages ago. But that was actually a really good lesson for me, because I had always been like, I wanted to win, I wanted to be successful, da 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 da. And from that I learned that you don't have to be good at everything, and to find what you're good at. And I'm back into Pinterest quote territory, but it was a really big learning for me. And what happened then afterwards is I applied for this job in an agency that it was 3 people at the time. And I went for the interview, and I told her that my last job I was fired from because I couldn't sell and things. She's like, oh my God, brilliant. I hate salespeople, you're hired. I was like, oh my God, yes. And so from then on, it was Thinkhouse, and it was Jay McDade, who has been a mentor to me for a long time and still is. And I stayed there for 10 years and learned so much. I learned everything about, and when I say everyone should work in retail, I think anyone who wants to go on to do anything else afterwards should work in PR, because you learn everything. Literally one day you're running a rugby event with all the rugby lads, and then the next day you're launching martinis, or you're doing Ben and Jerry's social missions stuff. So you're kind of jumping from everything, and you become an expert at everything. And I know that's not the line, but we're going to go with an expert of everything. But it was such a good learning curve for me. And I suppose it taught me how to use the game of not manipulation, but encouraging people to get on your side and to bring them along with your message. And when we come to HunReal, everything I do is about bringing people along where they're at, and as opposed to you just going in and talking to people and saying, this is what you should think. So PR really was the benchmark for what I've gone on to do in the future. So I had the absolute ball of a time in Thinkhouse, working with blue chip companies. I was working with Heineken, Barry's Tea, which is my favourite brand, and just literally, it's so gorgeous. But having an absolute ball and learning so much. But then my dad died, and I think whenever you're faced with death, you're forced to look and reevaluate what you're doing. And I'd kind of been, for the last few years, kind of getting a bit awkward with forcing the position of selling on people. And I don't know what was bringing me to that point, but I was literally like, my job is to make people buy more. And it started to kind of sit uncomfortably with me. And before, I love stuff, by the way, and I love buying stuff, but I never had been, I suppose, socially aware or socially conscious, so it was kind of a little bit weird. Then my dad died, and I was like, oh God, I need to get out of here and figure out shit. So I got on to my sister and I was like, Michelle, do you think we should go traveling for a year? Do you think we should follow the sun? And she was like, yeah, for sure. And we booked a flight, and I literally got the weather out and was like, we need to be in the sun for a whole year, and figured out the weather. And it all went horribly wrong, but that's another story, because it started monsoons in Asia. We had to go to India, and then it started monsoons in the Gold Coast. When does it rain in the Gold Coast? My plan did not go. Anyway, we had a ball. I digress. I'll tell you about my travel stories some other time. So we went traveling, and we just were letting our hair down. I'm not going to say the words, but we did. And while we were traveling, we were in North America for 3 months. And by this stage now, we'd been together 6 months, I think. And don't you know when you're with someone and you wake up in the morning, and I don't know how all married couples do this, but you wake up in the morning, you're like, morning, cool, have breakfast, have your day, go for lunch, have your day again. You get to dinner, you're like, what the fuck do we talk about? So we were literally like sitting at dinner, like, good day, yeah, cool. So we had to kind of get a hobby. So as you can tell from my sports lingo, that I am not a sporty person. So I was like, anyway, we couldn't join clubs or whatever because we were only in places for 3 days. So what we started doing was getting our nails done. And hobby. So it turned out, gosh, there's a lot of intelligence. My teacher told me, don't worry. So we started getting our nails done, and every 3 days we'd either get a pedicure or a manicure. And I know it's not very ethical in retrospect, and as I've learned, the nail salons in America, but they were so cheap. So it was like a $10 or $20 every 3 days. I was like, yes, honey. So we were getting our nails done. It was stunning. And as we were going along, we literally went to a nail place in every city across America. And we went to one in Dallas. And they were all kind of fun, and like people were going in groups and chatting and having drinks. And we went to this one in Dallas, and they literally were having the crack. And I was like, this is what I am talking about. Like literally all groups of people coming in just to get their nails done. And it was like, there's nothing like this in Dublin, because in Dublin, we have to go on the piss if we're going to go out as a group. We don't have things that we can go to as a social occasion. I was like, I would love to open that in Dublin. And it was kind of like a passing thought. And just when we're getting into third quarter, things get tropical. So I was like, yeah, that's an interesting idea. And my sister was a hairdresser, and she had opened salons. So I kind of didn't think about it. It kind of festered along, kept getting her nails done. And I was like, Michelle, I'm going to do it. I'm going to open a nail salon. She's like, Andrea, you hate beauty. You hate you know nothing about it. And I was like, grand. We'll figure that out. But as it happened, I'd worked in PR for so long, so I can build a brand. I can start from the very start. I can build it up and whatever. She can open salons. And I was like, Michelle, we have the perfect combination. Who knew? So we got, as part of that, when we were in Dallas, then we went to South by Southwest. And, you know, it's all about going to all the talks, getting inspired, meeting loads of people, whatever. All our friends from Ireland came over, so we just went to the set. Mazer came over. But it was actually helpful, because we were in this world. I'm going to look back on this and go, I am set obsessed. All our friends came over, and they all worked in creative industries in different areas. And I kind of sat down with each one of them without them knowing and asked them, do you think this would be a good idea? What would you do? Blah, blah, blah. So they all came back and said, yeah, this would be good. You could do this. And there was people who built things. They were like, you could build this. You could do this. Da, da, da. And I was like, oh my God, yes, I'm actually going to do this. So we bopped back to Dublin, and I was like, if I'm going to open anywhere, it's on South William Street. So I was literally walking up and down South William Street every day to get a premises, found this room, booked it. What do you do? Whatever. Got it. Rented it. The room was ours. And luckily enough, I went back to Thinkcase to work again. So I had time. We went to Mexico afterwards and sat on a beach for like 4 weeks, literally on my laptop the whole time. So I planned every single thing. And I wrote a business plan, and everyone's like, oh, a business plan, go on, when you send it on to me. And I send it on, they're like, oh, honey, that's an interesting business plan. Because it's like a Word document, and it's like, what will we do? Competitor analysis. And the most important thing for it at the end of it was, how are people going to feel when they're in there and when they leave? And that was what we built Tropical Popical on. So it was like, I don't know anything about nails. I don't know anything about nail trends, nail art, whatever. When we opened the salon, I was like, Michelle, what do we need to buy to do nails? She's like, I don't know. And we had to hire staff who knew how to do nails to make sure we had everything we needed. Delegation is key. But that's the quote from today, not the set. So then we had the how people are going to feel, and we opened up and trucked along, and the girls who I hired were very typically nail people. They weren't whatever, so they'd be standing around and they'd be like just awkward, and I'm like, girls, sit down, relax, read a magazine. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, we're here to have fun. Like, the whole point of your day should be to have fun and relax and to spread joy. Mother Teresa's coming out of me now. Apart from all the hate she feels, but whatever, we'll skip over that. But so it was to spread joy. So that was kind of our starting thing. And as time went on, it kind of became more and more apparent to me that what I wanted Tropical Popical to be was not just a business that made money. It was to be something that fed my soul, for one, that had staff who worked there, who loved working there, who became a family, who spread joy, who loved what they were doing, and that the thing that we were going to spend our time doing most of the time would make us happy. And I think that that seems like a very bizarre sentence and obvious, but when you break it down to what most people are doing, and does it make you happy, you really have to look at that and actually analyze it, and does it make you happy? And if it doesn't, why the hell are you doing it? So we did all that and lived our best lives and whatever, and it kind of naturally got more socially conscious as it went along. And we got a few kind of big shout outs, and everyone loves the Ellen story, and I'm kind of sick of telling it. So Saoirse said it on Ellen, and it kind of flung us into this whole different ball game. And what I learned from that Ellen thing is it kind of made me reflect on what success was. And everyone around that time was like, oh my God, you're so busy, you can't get in, you're going to have to open more and more and more and whatever. And I was like, I kind of looked at it and I was like, yeah, maybe I should. And then I was like, I do not want to open more. And I was like, why is that? And I had to analyze it around the Ellen time. And I started to figure out what success looked like to me as a business owner. And to me, success looks like community. It looks like happiness. It looks like being world renowned. And I think it's so funny that we're this little nail bar on South William Street that literally has been on Ellen. People come and visit us from all over the world and like message us on Instagram going, I'm flying in from China, I can't wait to come and visit you. And you're like, how is this real life? Because we're literally doing our little thing in the corner of the world, living our best lives, but that emanates, and I think that for me is what success is. And also, when I looked at if I was going to open more businesses, I was like, if I open more businesses, I'm going to be taken away from what I love doing. And what I love doing is being on that floor, talking to clients, talking to my girls, having the crack, and just doing nails. Well, I don't do nails, but doing nails. I try to learn. I'm not very good. So if I open more, my job role is going to completely change. I'm going to be working in HR. I'm going to be behind a desk all the time. I'm going to be managing multiple things. And that's not my buzz. And like, I'm not hungry to take over the world because I'm very conscious that it's not my world to take over. And when I was walking along, especially on Capel Street, I was looking at all the businesses, and they're all family businesses that have been there for years. And those businesses were set up to sustain their life. It wasn't that they were setting it up to sell it on, to move on to the next thing. It was like, this is what's going to give me the opportunity to live my best life. And that's kind of what I always reflected back on into Tropical Popical. And I hope we'll be able to do that for a long time. So while that Tropical Popical then kind of started running itself, I got bored. And it was around the same time, fourth quarter. It was around the same time that Mariah Carey came into my... No, she'd always been in my life. It was around that time that the Eighth Amendment really started to kind of come into my consciousness. I've never been political. I've never been an activist of any description. Not that I've never cared, but I've never taken it upon myself to want to do anything in that realm. What I thought, I was like, oh, no. And I started going to marches for what's now become repeal. And when I was at the march, I'd be at the back going, oh, it's very shouty. And I agree with what they're saying, but I just don't feel the vibes of how they're saying it. But I'd still support and be at them and posting everything about it, and that was fine. And then the general election was coming up, and we were in Trop Pop, and I was chatting to all the girls, and we have a group WhatsApp, and I was like, how's everyone voting? Really excited. And they're like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to vote, or yeah, I'll just do what my mom and dad are doing, or whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, girls, like real, the mom and Mean Girls, girls, no. Do you want a drink? No. I'm only joking. This is bonkers that you're not even going to think about voting. And like, then I was talking to my sister, who's like my yin to my yang, and I was like, what are you? And she's like, Andrea, I will not open a newspaper. I will turn off the television if the news comes on. I do not want that shit in my life. And I was like, Michelle, that shit is your life. And she's like, no, don't want it, don't care. It's too boring, it's too depressing, whatever. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then I was at home, and I was on the interweb, surprise, surprise, scrolling away, and I saw this article on one of the women's magazines, and I was like, what way are you going to wear your hair on election day? And I was like, surely we are more as women than what way we're going to wear our hair on election day. There was no political coverage of anything that was happening. There was nothing about the red line issues for women in it. I was like, this is in bits. So I sat down, I actually can't even say it, sat down with a cup of tea and started typing out what I wanted to do. And I was like, I want to do a platform that makes these issues relevant, that gets the girls who come into the shop, who are working in the shop, gets them to care. How do I do that? So I kind of broke it down into what do they care about, what do they do online, where do they live in their online world, and what do they share? And broke it all down, and from my PR world, I approached it like a PR campaign. So it was like, what's the objective, and all the kind of marketing terms that I lashed in there for the crack. And the main thing that it was going to be was that it was going to throw glitter on issues without minimizing them. And at the time, I had my own little PR company, and James Kavanagh was working with me in the office, and another girl, Aisling. So we'd be working away, and I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. Will you help? And they're like, yeah, for sure. So we sat down, and we firstly spent a long time researching the whole world of abortion and got all the facts, got every single thing, and to make sure that we were comfortable and that we could stand over everything we did. Because whilst we were throwing glitter on it, it was throwing glitter on something that had weight and that we wanted to respect, and to make sure that we were educated in it and had the knowledge and everything. So we weren't going in like, hey, glitter, even though we were, but like that we had a foundation basically. So we did that, then we sat down and wrote the website, and I think whenever you're doing anything, for me personally, the website is always the grounding thing. It makes me focus on what I want to do, what I want to say, and how I'm going to do it. So did the website, whatever, and we started trucking along, and our whole thing was that we wanted to get in other people's feeds, because there's no point in whatever beautiful content we have in our feed, because people who are going to be clicked onto our feeds are already on board, and we're not that we don't care about them, but they're done. Next group, whatever. So we started figuring out how we were going to get into other people's feeds and how we were going to target the people we wanted to target and to mobilize them. So we started with celebrities. Celebrities was our first area. We just wanted them to start either posting on their social media or making videos for us that we could share, that they could share, whatever. So that was all going fine. Celebrity life, glitter, glam, fab. Then during that time, I started kind of breaking it down into who the audience was going to be, and was like, want to get into lads buzz as well. So started approaching people who would have a male following, and one of those was Al, and he said, yeah, sure, I'll create a graphic and put it up, whatever. So he did his art thing and made his graphic, fab. And then we were like, everything about this has to be positive, it has to be uplifting, it has to have the message but still have power, but still have a simplicity in it. So I was like, brilliant, great, sent it on to me. I was like, oh yeah, it's gorgeous, fab. And then as an aside, he's like, if you find me a wall, I'll put it up on a wall for you, because obviously that's his medium. So I was like, oh, leave it with me. So off I tootled, and I knew we had kind of talked about the Project Arts wall, because it had murals on it for like the 4 years in advance of that. So it had a precedent of having murals there. And got on to the artistic director. He was like, yes, we'd absolutely adore to have the work of someone with the artistic caliber of Mazer. And I was like, brilliant, here's the artwork. He's like, amazing, grand. And put it to his board, fine. They were like, yes, love the art, whatever. So up it went onto the wall, loving our lives. We're like, this is brilliant, great. And to me, like, obviously at that stage, who knew what was going to happen in the future, but it was just like, yeah, it's on a wall, that's great. People are going to get their picture with it and talk about it, and fine. And that was going to be a result in itself. And then obviously, not obviously, but 10 days later then, during that time, we were inundated with, there was all these Facebook groups from the No campaign side, and they were all sending the same message with the same words to Project Arts, to all the people that they had to, ministers, whatever. So, but at the time, we got 200 letters or emails or phone calls of joy, I'll say, and support. So we had like the Irish Council of Civil Liberties, we had loads of Dublin City councillors, we had the support of a lot of people, but the people who were saying no to this were so vocal that they shut it down. And it kind of struck me as being so unfair of how in society we measure where we're taking our call from, who shouts loudest, rather than where the main support is. So we were shut down, and it was a really emotional day taking it down, and it felt like we were being silenced yet again. And from all the people I'd spoken to before, I felt like abortion had been pushed into the shadows of shame and stigma, and it was something that we were to not talk about, brush under the carpet, and it was happening again, and like it was so annoying. But as the world is joy would have it, it actually had the Barbra Streisand effect, and we ended up on the cover of 3 magazines. We ended up everywhere, jumpers, whatever, and the jumpers started selling and whatever. So it became a big thing in itself. And then we kept on, and like then we had a few other bumps in the road. Like James did a video and called it a borscht, and there was a little bit of uproar. And we were kind of trying to explain to people that it wasn't that it was a disrespectful of the procedure or of the experience. It was trying to take the heaviness and the weight out of it. And that was everything we wanted to do with HunReal. It was like to try and make this subject be a joyous subject. Not a joyous subject, but to take the heaviness out of it and to have reproductive rights at the very core of it. And reproductive rights to me is a joyful thing, to be honest. And then we did another thing we did is we did this event in Panty Bar. So the March for Choice was on, and as I'd said, I had kind of felt alienated at a lot of the marches. It wasn't my language, it wasn't my buzz, it wasn't my vibe. And I was like, if that's not my vibe, and I'm totally into this, it's not going to be loads of other people's vibe. And we wanted to get people talking about it in an influencer sphere. So what we did was we're like, what would influencers go to? So we made this portraits and Prosecco party where everyone gets their picture taken, shared on your socials, gorge. So we created this scene in Panty Bar. So it was a photo booth, and we had the support of Think House. So Think House have always been so supportive of everything we do. And they came in and shot it, and we made all these things. But in the Facebook event group beforehand, I had loads of fights of people going, "You're having Prosecco and we're talking about the March for Choice." And I was like, yes, we are, because it's reproductive rights. And if we win a referendum to get our reproductive rights, you can be damn straight I am going to be popping Prosecco. So get in the sea. So that was kind of where HunReal kind of moved around. And then after we had taken down the mural, we are very good at playing by the rules. And the thing was that you had to, we were in Dublin City Planning, and you have to have a planning permission for a mural. Now, the amount of murals around Dublin would tell me otherwise, but we were like, okay, what we'll do is once the planning changes, once an election or referendum is called, so we'll hold on. Once we get our date, we'll pop it up. So the amount of times that we were like thinking the date was going to be set, we'd be like, oh, the date's going to be set on Tuesday, it's going back up, it's going back up. And it kept kind of going on and on and on. So eventually the date was set, whack it back up again, and then we fall into the bloody charity regulator. And the charity regulator said that it wasn't art, and I think there's an interesting question that's come out of this of why is it within the remit of a charity regulator to decide what is and what isn't art? And the fact is that, and the Turner Prize was announced yesterday, and all the judges on the jury were saying every single piece of art is infused with politics. And the fact is that every piece of art is political, because art is a reflection of what we do and what we live in and the society we're in. And for the charity regulator to take that away from art, I think is a really much bigger question that needs to happen after the referendum, and we'll come back to that. But for now, we'll continue on. We've got our 4 weeks to go, and like I just got goosebumps there thinking about it. But it feels like a long way we've come, and it's so soon, but it feels like so long to go. And I just hope that we're all joyous in 4 weeks. And just, I suppose, to close off the game, I always live by this sentiment of create the life you want to live. And that has spawned everything from chapter 1 of the set, chapter 2 of Pure, chapter 3 of Tropical Popical, sports lingo again, third quarter, and fourth quarter HunReal. So I'm always conscious of creating the life you want to live and creating the world you want to live in. And you have to be cognizant of that. And I suppose if you do that, then you will become the winner of the game. Yay. And always bring drag into your life.